Okay, we're back.
Well, all right.
Aloha and good morning, Riverside.
Morning, Riverside.
We are here with Mojo guitar player Scott Cioe. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bill. Welcome.
And I'm very excited to have you here. I've gotten to play many times on many a stage with
Absolutely.
you, and we did a whole bunch of Facebook Lives during COVID, which was a huge, great time because the whole world was locked down. And But in Massachusetts, you could have 8 people together, so not like in Rhode Island. So we were able to go to Massachusetts at that time and have those gigs.
Yeah, they were fun.
And, but that was a lot of fun. And so we have a rehearsal, and at the end of rehearsal, we play 3 or 4 songs and get that rolling.
Yeah, I was surprised, especially those initial ones. They had about 1,500 views in those first runs of it. That shows how many people were stuck at home.
Grayson watched quite a few of them.
Oh,
I think
cool.
that's where he got a lot of his moves from.
That's what we like to hear.
Well, so a couple things. You have a great history of music, and you were just talking before we started this about going to an art institute. So give us a little background on that.
Yeah, well, you want the start of the start?
Actually, why don't we start from the real start?
Okay.
Started playing guitar. What did it?
Yes, well, way back in the dawn of the decade of decadence, in about 1980, I was about 12, and an older neighbor had 3 albums. I'm not sure he had any more than 3 albums because he played these 3 incessantly, and they got in me pretty good, which was Aerosmith Rocks and Toys in the Attic and the Who's Quadrophenia. The grooves wore out on those records and wore into me, I think. So that got me really interested in wanting to play. And at that time, I grew up in Barrington. And at that time, obviously, you know, the new wave of heavy metal and new wave music and pop music were popular there. But there was a big contingency of kids that loved classic rock from the 60s and 70s. So there was that weird dichotomy. So I got as much into Iron Maiden as I did into Hendrix and Clapton, and then started listening to all of the influences of all of them. So when I found out that guys like Eddie Van Halen loved Eric Clapton, I'm like, oh. And then I found out that Eric Clapton loved Freddie King, so I discovered the blues that way, and it just kind of expanded out. So I ended up going to URI after graduating Barrington High, and didn't really take. So I ended up going to the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale, and they had a music and video business program, and it was basically a business course, but it was tuned to the arts. So talk about having something that gives you focus and relevance. So did quite well there. Came out to a recession and ended up in sales.
That happens.
Yeah.
And when you came back, different bands that you played with over the years, like the early times.
Yeah, early times. I played for a number of years with a band called Exit 19, and it's funny because one of the current members in Mojo, I played with him back then when we were teenagers, and ended up reconnecting, and it was great. Kevin Grattan, and then from there, I played in a couple of other bands. I played in a few down in Florida, which were kind of interesting. Some of the rooms down there are a little wild, and we played one room that had a 4 o'clock close. That was brutal. But
That's a couple extra steps.
but I focused on my career for a while. I had thought about becoming or turning professional, and at a certain point, I decided that probably better off having a day job and keeping it as something that I'm passionate about and whatnot. So I did the cover band routine for a while, and in the early 90s, a friend of mine, Henry Conley, came up with a concept to do all of the spoof songs of hits that Paul and Al on HJY were doing in a live context, and he had it kind of mapped out where he thought that it would need to be charity because they have their contracts and they're not allowed to make money afterwards and whatnot. He was right. Pitched it to them, they loved it, so he and I put together a band, and we played a bunch of gigs.
That's very cool.
With that.
That's
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Well, the great thing back then was that they meaning the owners of the radio station, were very big into off-site promotions and tying kind of a cross-marketing thing, tying events and touring bands in with their local talent and
Like
whatnot.
the cruise,
Yeah, that's the stuff that they do now.
Played well together.
Yeah, back then it was Christmas parties and Earth Day concerts and events that happened at anywhere from the Veterans Memorial to places like the Clubhouse or the Strand, Loopholes and things like that.
So I used going to Scarborough Beach.
I had been many a time. Yeah, but it's kind of interesting, playing at Lubo's and sharing a dressing room with Levon Help because I'm opening for the band.
Yeah.
And it was all doing silly spoof songs.
Yeah.
But everybody loved it.
You were
so
there.
It was fun,
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of interesting things like Earth Day '94 where we opened for Warren Haynes' new band.
That was like
And
the first Earth Day, wasn't it? 94?
I believe it might have been, yeah. It was actually in June and it was a misty, cold day. I don't
Yes.
think my fingers ever warmed up.
Yeah.
But it was funny because the headliner was Four Non Blondes.
Yes.
And,
Was it
but
at
Templeton Music
Yes.
down in Providence?
Yes.
They used to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Years
yeah.
ago. Even when I was a kid.
Yeah, it was great.
Really
Yeah,
cool stuff
they
like
said
that.
there were 7,000 or 8,000 people there. And it was pretty wild. And Warren Haynes, I'm a huge fan. So anytime you can tie me to anything Allman Brothers, it works for me. And so we warmed up them, and then some band I never heard called the Goo Goo Dolls were next, because this was before any of their hits and
Yeah.
stuff. And then Four Non Blondes. So it was
Transitioning from there, who's your favorite guitarist?
Oh, how do you narrow that down?
But now it's half.
How long do we have here?
At least to three, maybe.
Yeah.
Top three.
Well, that's kind of a tough thing too, because you can break it down into genres and then subgenres and things like that. I mean, I can go through them
I
quick.
think he's just trying to get another show out of us.
Yeah,
Scotty's the top.
Yeah, there you go. No, I mean, I love guys like
Straight
Eric
up rock
Clapton.
guys.
Yeah,
Okay. Jazz blues, digital
yeah,
blues guy.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
Yeah.
he was such a chameleon. I mean, he's done albums with Babyface down to guys in Cream and things like that. So never mind the way that all of his solo stuff has spanned from early.
Yeah,
till-
he
till
touched a
recent.
lot of different.
Yeah. And he's still great. Saw him a couple of times over the last couple of years, and I'm gonna see him again in September. So. Love Dwayne Allman and anybody in the Allman Brothers band. I mean, everyone who's played in that band has been great. How do you not think of guys like Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads? And,
Yeah.
So
The two posters on my son's wall.
there you go. He's a smart man.
Anyone obscure, like someone that typically people don't follow, that you say
Yeah.
is
Well, I mean, it depends what you call obscure. I mean, I love Rory Gallagher, the Irish blues player, and another Irishman, Gary Moore. Anything that Warren Haynes touches is terrific. I don't know that they're obscure. I don't know how many of the audience would know
Yeah.
them, but guitar players would
Yeah.
certainly know them. Jeff Beck, guys like that. So, kind of covers it, I think.
So cool venues you got them to play in.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Narrow Center for the Arts
That's
is one of
kinda
my
what I
favorites.
wanted to hear.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
Everyone in
fantastic
New
one.
England, every New England guy wants to kind of get to that stage. At some
Yeah,
point.
no, that's a great stage.
Great
The,
crowd too.
the crowd is unbelievable.
And therefore music.
To get an ovation for a guitar solo is a special thing.
When you get to play with somebody on stage there, they got pulled up to play with.
Yeah, actually, it was the place right next door.
Oh.
Peter Wolf came on stage with us it was called Water Street at the time.
Yeah.
And I've been called up on stage by a couple of guys like Girls, Guns, and Glory, which is known as Ward Hayden and the Outliers now, over at the Zeiterion and down to Knickerbocker and things like that. That was pretty wild. The Bristol concert series was always a fun one.
Yep.
We played the 3rd of July one year. They estimated over 11,000 people were there, so that was
And then Warren has a party that you guys play at a lot.
Yeah, well, we do a lot of the stuff for the Blasco Strong events.
Yeah,
things like
that's
that.
what it is,
With,
yeah.
yeah,
At
Neil
Riverside
Petullo
and
and Joe Karen and Joey Scalaro and
Yeah.
gang. So
Very
that was really fun. You know, those other clubs that we had mentioned, and Twin River Casino. We're in with Mojo May 10th, actually, at Twin River Lighthouse. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, yeah, it was kind of funny because there was a scheduling mishap that turned into a gig for us. So,
That's what you do.
we'll take it how we can get it. I played there a lot with Detroit Breakdown, but never with Mojo.
So now the long ass question would be, what has been the worst pronunciation of your last name?
Boy, Siri probably. I think she pronounces it Shia.
I know we talked about it before at one point.
Yeah, the funny part is that, I mean, a lot of people pronounce it Cioe, including another family that's from the same region in Italy, on the West Bank.
Because you've been over there with your job that you have.
They
now.
pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But because with the job, what you do for work now, you actually been over to Italy.
Many
So,
times, yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
cool. So good to see any other places overseas.
No, actually, it's just been Europe and Caribbean stuff, but
Get to jam it anytime you ever got over there?
yeah, I have a couple of times, yeah. And in a business environment, if somebody's got a guitar and they're like, "Hey, you play, right?" "Yeah, I play." And you start going on with some stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I knew you said you could play, but."
That's a huge thing to be able to play with a totally different culture, because I've
Yeah.
done that myself.
Yeah.
When I played, and then I realized I was in a guitar center or something down in Florida, and after jamming with someone, I realized he didn't speak any English.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh, jeez.
Do you speak the blues?
Yeah. The other guy that was banging the bongo, same thing. He
Yeah.
Music is the universal language.
I was on vacation. I think it was either in the Dominican. I think it was the Dominican, and with a bunch of friends. And they had a couple of guys coming over singing and playing. And one of my buddies was like, "He plays," and so the guy goes, "I'm like, here we go." So I'm like, "All right, what am I going to play?" So, and he's, "Oh, the blues."
I went to a wedding down at Destination Wedding, and the band there was basically playing Mojo set number 2 for a couple of years, because that's all they're listening to down there. It's all brand new to them.
That's awesome.
And some of the other projects that you have, I know you have Mojo is a pretty. Who's in Mojo?
Mojo is Dan Pacheco on lead vocals, myself on co-lead guitar, Keith Viveris on co-lead guitar, Brandon Capaldo on drums, and aforementioned Kevin Gratton on bass guitar, your old slot.
Yes. And a cool logo.
Yeah.
Very cool. Where'd you guys get
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
You know, luckily we've got a good group of talented friends.
Yes.
Logo provided by the one and only Mr. William Hurley.
Thank you very much. So the other bands that you're still jamming with?
Yeah, well, Detroit Breakdown is still around. We turned it from a blues rock band into a true Jay Giles tribute band because everyone thought we were based on the name.
Yeah.
Like when we were Mojo, everyone thought we were a Doors cover
which
band.
is
one Doors tour, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And I hated this song.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on. And they're like,
It
what
is-
other Doors tunes?
It is
do you
your
have like
fault
that?
that's your
yeah.
call, though.
Yeah, I know. I messed it up. It was supposed to be, the band was supposed to be
Mojo Filter.
Mojo Filter. And when I made the Facebook page, I wasn't paying attention. I must have done something.
It doesn't sound anything
Yeah,
like you.
yeah,
It doesn't
and,
sound anything
I
like
said, how's it look, guys? And they're like, dude, Mojo Rising, what?
Exactly.
I said, oh, all right, well, can't change it now, so we're kind of just on that.
But we
And
did.
now it's Mojo.
Mojo Incorporated. Yeah.
And then the other bands that you're rocking with?
Yeah, so Detroit Breakdown, we're doing 2 sets of Jay Giles music. So about 2 hours and 15 minutes worth of just Jay Giles. And then we do, for the third set, we do what we're calling an after party. So it's related music, but it's considered after the show. Because I never liked when tribute bands have to expand into other bands' material that, it might be related, but it was never played by that
to be
particular
played,
band.
just
Just
to
to
stay in,
fill
yeah,
out the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So we do, okay, here's your 2 sets, and then now we're doing an after party kind of thing. And then 6 El Camino is a kind of an outfit that's